joined us today. We will give everyone a minute or so to log on, and in the meantime, I want to provide you all with some details about today's webinar. This webinar will last approximately 45 minutes, and there will be an opportunity for Q&A towards the end of the presentation. Should you have any questions throughout the webinar, please feel free to submit them via the chat function. Also, this webinar will be recorded, and we will add the webinar to our Alumni Association website, and we will also email you the direct link in the coming days, so be on the lookout for that. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce our speaker, Hallie Crawford. Many of you know Hallie from previous Vanderbilt alumni career offerings, and we are so thrilled to have her back to lead today's session. Hallie has been a certified career coach, speaker, author, and national career expert since 2002. Her company, Create Your Career Path, is headquartered in Atlanta, Georgia, and she is regularly featured in the media such as Forbes, CNN, Money Magazine, and the Wall Street Journal. She holds undergraduate and graduate degrees from Vanderbilt and the University of Illinois. And with over 2,500 success stories, her team of coaches and resume writers help professionals find jobs that make them want to jump out of bed in the morning and go to work. And with that, I'll turn it over to Hallie.
Thank you, Kate. I really appreciate it. It's funny because that is our brand, the jump out of bed in the morning to go to work, in my elevator speech or pitch, which is aligned with what we're going to be talking about today. And it still makes me kind of chuckle every time too. Lately with remote work, I've said to walk down the hall and go to work in your dining room or whatever is appropriate. So as Kate said, thank you so much for being here today. I'm Hallie Crawford, and I'm really looking forward to talking with you about leveraging LinkedIn, not just for job search purposes, although we will talk about that, but also for professional success, branding yourself as an expert, making sure that you're getting that next promotion, all of these other great things. And I just realized that my dog decided to sit on the couch behind me. So sorry about that interruption. At least he's being quiet. All right, so let's take a look at our next slide. So Kate already introduced me. I won't go into too much detail about this, but I've been coaching and training for a long time. I'm actually a Vandy grad from '95, so I'm really aging myself. I know I turned 51 this year. But we pride ourselves with our advice, which relates to what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to try to give you tangible, practical, like down-to-earth, real advice that will help you more with LinkedIn for whatever purpose you want to use it for, and also at whatever stage you are with LinkedIn. So one of the first things that I just wanted to say really quickly is I get excited about what I do because I love being a coach in webinars. And we tend to give you a lot of information in a short period of time. So please just know, if you can walk away from today with like one or two steps that make the most sense for you based on what your goals are with LinkedIn and where you're at with it, with your profile, etc., like pick and choose what's going to make the most sense for you and your situation. And then you're going to get the recording. We offer you a copy of our slides. I'll show you how to get that. You can keep all of that stuff as things progress. So I think with this next slide, if we take a look at this, we all know why LinkedIn is important. Employers are reporting more and more that they're using it for recruiting new employees. So for job seekers, it can be really, really helpful for so many different reasons, as I think we already know. But we also want you to be thinking about today, whether you're in job search mode or not, but it goes for like both situations, that branding yourself on LinkedIn, just as you would with your resume, etc., is really critically important. And it's something that I find that like people tend to struggle with a little bit more, understandably. So we really want to focus a lot on that today and what we mean by branding, because I know it's kind of like, yeah, I've heard about that before and I've heard it over and over again. So what do you mean and how do I get there? So with LinkedIn, all of the different reasons we want you to think about leveraging it more effectively is to brand yourself, position you as an expert. It's also a place, though, that you can learn from other people, like exchange ideas that are, industry specific or not. Like, how do you manage your time more effectively or whatever it is, and help you also stay in the know with industry specific trends. It's obviously a tool to strengthen and expand your network. And we want you to do this regardless of whether you are in job search mode. And what I mean by that, if you're obviously looking for a new job or not. What we find is with our clients who are more like C-suite level, just more seasoned professionals, if you will, is they just kind of think of like they're checking their LinkedIn at least a couple times a week and commenting on posts, like posting something, like they just kind of see that as part of what they're supposed to be doing. And that's what we want more people to start doing. So this networking thing is important for all purposes. And the other thing that we find too is for those of you out there who are listening in later or live now, if you're not looking for a new job or not right away, it can help you strengthen your client relationships. It can help you find new business. It can help you with sales for your company if that's the role that you're in. So there's just so many different reasons to be paying attention to LinkedIn, and I'll give you a really quick story and we'll share this next slide here. So if you want to write down how to get the slides, it's here. Kate, if you don't mind maybe putting that in the chat box, the email address, that would be great. I did a workshop. It was in Texas for finance professionals. And they noticed that when they were about to go on a sales call or just reaching out for a perspective or to a prospective customer, they started noticing that their customers would go look at their LinkedIn profile first and then schedule a call with them and kind of decide whether they wanted to or not. And I thought that was really interesting. So again, this is just reiterating it's for a lot of different important purposes. So let's take a look at what we're going to be talking about today. And I'm going to put right in here too, just so you guys have it. And I think I can do it right without my glasses because my glasses are like a little bit wonky today. Hold on, createyourcareerpath.com. Okay, it's in the chat box. We're going to talk next about first about your profile and some basics to get things going, making connections, sharing information. We will have time for Q&A at the end. But as Kate said, also, if you could go ahead, feel free to put questions in the chat box along the way. I will stop and answer those as much as I can. And I know we had some pre-submitted questions as well, and we'll try to get through as many as we can. If we don't answer your question, you can use the same email address in the chat to email me your question later on. That's fine if you think of something later. And if your question is a little bit more specific to your unique situation, just know that we may not be able to answer it today. It may be something that we need to spend a little bit more time on to get it right for your unique situation. All right, so let's take a look at this next slide. And what we want to suggest to you, like we said earlier, is go step by step with your profile and building it out. We don't expect for you to sit down and in 3 hours, like it's perfect. Like start on it or update it and look at it again the next day and the day after. See it as an organic process and almost kind of like your resume in a way that it's a living, breathing document. So with your profile, it's really important to have a headshot, to brand yourself effectively, have as many of the sections in LinkedIn that it makes sense for you to have filled out, and I'll tell you what I mean by that in just a second. And also, you want to make sure that your profile is search engine optimized so that you have the right keywords in there so that clients can find you and possible employers can find you, or people who are looking for or prospective clients can find you. Okay. Your connections, we're going to talk about making connections and the different things that are listed on this slide here under number 2. And then we'll talk about sharing information and how to do that in the right way and kind of what makes sense there. So if we could launch our first poll, that would be great. And let me clarify what we mean and what our advice is for a 100% complete profile. Okay. And what we say to our clients is we want you to have everything filled out in LinkedIn that makes sense for you to have filled out. So for example, if you don't have volunteer work, then you don't need to have anything in there. If you don't have, and you may have noticed this, that there's a section for certifications or publications, articles you've written, that type of thing. Don't feel pressure that just because LinkedIn has a section on there that you have to have something in it. When we're talking about a 100 complete profile, it means that everything that makes sense for you as an employee or as a job searching candidate is filled out. And it's okay if it's not 100%. That's why we're here. So I'll give you a moment to finish that and we'll share 81%. Okay, so this is to help you know you're not alone. Go step by step with this. And then some people do, which is fantastic. For those people that do, just keep in mind, right? And this really goes for everybody. And I'll go to the next slide. Is LinkedIn is going to suggest other things for you to add. But again, remember, that doesn't mean you have to make something up or it has to be there or that you're not going to get hired or not get that client contract just because it's not there. It's an opportunity for you to put something if it's relevant for you. Let's take a look at this next slide and talk a little bit more about your profile first. So first of all, you have to have a photo. That's just, a non-issue anymore. It really needs to be there. If you're concerned about ageism in any way, just make sure that it's as youthful as possible. For example, we had one client say, I tend to look younger without my beard versus with it, or maybe it was the other way around, doesn't matter. And just dress in a way that's more contemporary and helps avoid that. That's kind of the best that you can do there, okay? And keep in mind for that kind of age related thing, you want to work somewhere that's going to value your age and expertise. Okay. The thing that I want you to just keep in mind here with your photo is it needs to be professional. You don't want to have like a crazy stuff going on in your background. It needs to be a clean color background. And we want you to be warm and like smile. We have some clients who are like, well, if I'm looking professional, I look serious, right? It needs to be a blend of both. And over time, we want you to consider adding a video. I would say this is going to be more relevant for job seekers because it can help you get that interview. A quick video introduction of yourself that is linked in your About section can help someone connect with you and make a decision whether they want to bring you in for an interview or not. And just the fact that you even have it can kind of add to your repertoire. This is not something that if you don't have it, you're suddenly not going to get hired. That's not the case here. But as we move towards more, technology and everything else, we want to start suggesting that to people. And the way that you can frame out this video could be your elevator speech, a really brief career history, answering the question like you would in an interview. Tell us a little bit more about yourself. Or if you're in sales or you're looking for new projects, it could be a little bit more background about your company. It needs to be about the results that you achieve for people, kind of a blend of your elevator speech. Let's talk next about your branded banner. So we already talked about this first section up here in the middle of this slide and what we want your headshot to look like. We'd like you to include a branded image for your banner, and I'll show you what this looks like and what we're talking about, and then I'm going to hop back to this other slide. We're talking about this banner here that goes behind your headshot. When this is not blown up like this, the yellow is darker. That's the only thing that bothers me when I blow this up. Point is, we do want you to have something there, not just the LinkedIn image that they can give you or whatever. If your company or organization is highly regarded in your industry, you could include your company logo or just leave it as that, especially if you're not searching for a new job. It could be a nature scene or the city skyline of where you live. It could be a hobby that you pursue if you're a snow skier or something like that, or it could be something else relevant to your industry. And we want you to brand it so that you have something that looks like this on this next slide, so that when someone comes to your profile, they know right away who you are, what you bring to the table. And for job seekers, they know what types of positions you may be looking for. Now we'll go ahead and launch this second poll here. And I'm going to lean over real quick because I got to turn off my heater because it's killing me. Okay, there we go. How many people out there have a branded banner? What we want you to have on there ideally is like what your either job title is if you're looking for the same type of job or if you're not in job search mode, and then a little tagline about the value you provide or kind of how you're known in your industry, so to speak. Okay. And when we're trying to find or we're recommending to clients images or photos they could use that are specific to their industry, maybe what we'll tell them is just like Google some images, like, images for financial analysis or event planning or whatever it is, and just get some ideas that way that you might be able to use. So we'll take a look at what, okay, so we've got 91% are saying no, which is again, Makes perfect sense that you're here. So let me just think about this for a second. I think that if we're picking and choosing in terms of priority for your action steps, we want you to have a headshot and the content filled out first. Add the banner later on if this is something you don't have yet, but do put on your list of priorities because more and more people have it and it does make a difference. In the past year, like I just see almost everybody that I connect with on LinkedIn has some sort of branded banner. We do offer this for clients or even just as like a one-time service, and we offer a discount on it to Vanderbilt alums. So feel free to email the same email address and I can explain to you how all that works and what's involved. All right, a couple of other things that are going to be really important is making sure that your contact information is completely visible. You've got your phone number there and your email address, and I'll show you where we're talking about in just a second. If you're concerned about spam calls, which I know we all are, you can get a Google Voice number to put there. But the bottom line is, if you're looking for new clients or customers or you're in job search mode, you want people to be able to contact you and you want to make it easy on them. So make sure that it's in there and like included in your contact info, the button here on your profile. When someone clicks here, we want them to see all of your contact information so they can connect with you and reach out to you, aside from just connecting with you or messaging you on LinkedIn. The second thing that is helpful is to customize or shorten your URL so that it has a little bit less gobbledygook and all those numbers and letters in there. And what we mean by that is what your URL is at the top. So for example, mine is linkedin.com/in/Hallie Crawford because I started on LinkedIn really early. Put your name in there. It's okay if there's a couple of numbers. The reason why we like it though, when it's a little bit shorter and cleaner, is we want you to put a text only version of your LinkedIn URL onto your resume and your cover letter if you use one of those. We like for people to don't put live links in your resume because in some cases that can mess up the scanners that are scanning your resume. We would like you to put in your email address and your email signature line, create a standard email signature line for your job search that has all of your contact information there, as well as a live link to your LinkedIn profile. So this is different ways that you can brand yourself for all different purposes using LinkedIn, and you're letting your customers know about it. You're letting possible employers, connections know, et cetera, et cetera. Some people will put their headshot and their signature line. I tend to like that actually, because especially I think for all of the purposes, honestly, that we're talking about, it helps people connect with you a little bit more. Employers hire a person. They don't hire a LinkedIn profile link or a piece of paper, right? So that's what we want. And the same with clients and customers. All right, let's talk next about your about section of your profile. We want your about section to be a little bit more personal and speaking more to the reader than your resume summary. Your resume summary, they're still both relatively short and sweet, but that's going to be in third person and a little bit more formal. Your about section, it's okay, and I'll show you this next slide and I'll go back to this one for a second and explain it. But your writing choice in your about section should mirror your field. If you're in a more formal industry or profession, like you're a lawyer, in banking, something like that. I'm just kind of making this up, but more formal third person is fine, but include at least a couple of sentences at the end that are first person, because that's what LinkedIn is supposed to do. It's supposed to connect with the reader more than a resume necessarily does, okay? If you're in a health or human services type of profession like we are, like my whole about section is written in first person, and that's okay for me, okay? So your writing choice should mirror your field. However, we want across the board to have at least a little bit of first person in there. The other thing, which relates to our ideal career model, this is the model we use with our clients to help them determine their career direction, clarify their career goals, identify their brand. We want you to include in your about section, check the boxes here. What do you enjoy about what you do? talk about that a little bit, at least like as part of a sentence, because again, that's that personal connection and talking with someone. Include your strengths, include elements of your education if they're incredibly relevant to the jobs you're applying to or to your prospective customers. For example, if you have an MBA or a PhD or a certification, we want you to put that next to your name, or in your header at the top of your profile if it's going to help sell you for whatever purpose. You can reference it again, in the about section, again, if it's going to make sense for the purposes that you're, using LinkedIn for. Talk about your experience, but also talk a little bit about your personality type, or what we might call your soft skills. So kind of what are you known for that is relevant to like your personality type? Are you a really great detail oriented person? Are you a really great leader? Are you great at being a strategic thinker, but also dealing with the details or communicating those to your clients and customers? This, again, is all part of creating that brand, that picture of who you are. So it's almost like, without being like corny about it, you want the person to like have some adjectives that come to their mind almost right away, and the ones that you want them to when they look at your profile, or feelings, so to speak, associated with what it might be like if they hired you. Okay, so that's how you want to think about all of this. Let's take a look at, with your profile, your experience section. And a couple of things we'd like to recommend beyond the basics. So with your experience section, you want things to be results oriented. Always do that as much as possible. The other things that we recommend to our clients are, you can pull excerpts from some of the recommendations that you have on LinkedIn at the bottom. And if you don't, totally okay. Let's start to work on those over time and work on getting like 3 to 5 recommendations, and also give other people some recommendations as well. But the point is, if you've got a reference letter from someone, or if you can ask 1 or 2 people for a recommendation on LinkedIn, excerpt that, like what's the most powerful, compelling, element to it, and put that inside of your experience section so that it doesn't get buried at the bottom. That's one of the little nuggets we like to use with our clients. The other thing you can do, looking at the right hand side of this slide, is if there are any artifacts, is kind of a formal word, I know, but things like graphs, charts, PowerPoint presentations, or anything else that could help your candidacy, that are also okay for you to have be public and out there. You may need to genericize some of it and take some specifics out. But if there's something there that could help sell you a little bit more, we recommend including that in your experience section, because that can kind of help tip you over the edge with your job search, with a client hiring you, whatever the situation might be, or getting that new promotion, if that's your situation too. So include being a little bit creative with some of the things that you can put in your experience section so that they're there and kind of front and center. With your profile, let's talk a little bit about some kind of final thoughts here with it. And I'm going to go in depth with a couple of these because they're actually pretty important. So when you're finalizing and working on kind of the final touches of your profile, if you will, you want to make sure that you've included keywords in, and take a look at this slide here, because these are the specific areas where the keywords are going to be most important. Your header, which is the tagline, where your job title goes, the spot that's underneath your headshot, that needs to be keyword optimized. Your about section, the same thing, and then your skills section as well. So we want you to work towards, again, this doesn't have to be tomorrow, but you can have approximately, and I think the number right now is like 50 skills, which I realize is a lot. But we've been told by job seekers, and heard this from different places, if you can get up to 40 skills in there, that's going to be a little bit better for you to get found by prospective employers, recruiters, all of that. So number 1, work on adding to your list of skills. They need to be accurate and honest, obviously. But we also want you, with your skills section, to make sure that your top 3 skills that are visible there are also the most important, that you want people to see first. So prioritize the top 3 the most, add to your list of skills. because if you have, excuse me, 500 plus connections on LinkedIn, you get access to more of their tools and stuff, and they just view you more favorably for your job search. Same with having this number of skills as well. We already talked a little bit about getting recommendations, so let's work on that because it can be good content that you can use in different places. And we want you to make sure that you go through your settings in LinkedIn too, because it may have been a little while since you've done this. Make sure that everything that you want to be public is public, and that also you've set your, like, I want to be open to being viewed by or contacted by employers and recruiters, whether you have that as public, where you've got that open to work swoosh at the bottom. And I keep worrying that Nike's going to get mad at me for saying that. Just kidding. Or that it's private in the background, that you have that turned on in the background, but your employer would not see it because it's only for people that are using LinkedIn recruiting to find candidates. So these are some final things that are really critically important that can help you with a lot of different purposes. So make sure that you're attending to these things. And then obviously, it sounds silly, but proofread it. Get someone else to read your profile so that they can tell you, yeah, this sounds good. It's compelling. It's positive and upbeat. It sells you effectively, and no, there's no spelling or grammar errors, etc. What we tell people, so that you know, in your experience section, for example, is it's technically supposed to be a little bit more of a teaser to your resume. We usually will have clients, and when our writer writes it for our clients, he will usually have like 4 accomplishments from each job in there. And then with your older positions, you can just have them listed there with no accomplishments in them, because you want the employer to pay attention to the more recent stuff. But it's not supposed to have as much necessarily as you might have on your resume, but it's different things, for example, that you could link to, whereas you wouldn't do that on your resume. Okay, I know that was a lot. Let's move to step number 2, and this is making connections. You do want to get to 500 plus connections, so I would recommend a few things listed on this slide. Literally, go through your phone, connect with anyone that it would make sense to, including Uncle Joe, who you haven't talked to in a long time. This is where your Vanderbilt Alumni Association can come in really handy. I don't get paid to say this. We tell this to all of our clients. Find the LinkedIn group for Vanderbilt and join it and start making connections there. This can help you with a lot of different, or for a lot of different purposes, coworkers, et cetera, et cetera. Bottom line here is we want you to get to that 500 plus connections. And in doing so, it's okay to accept connection requests from people that you don't necessarily know, as long as they don't look like a stalker or, scary. Until you get to that 500, then you can slow that process down a little bit. But LinkedIn is a little bit of a popularity contest these days. Okay, so let's focus on job seekers for the most part in this next slide or two, which I'm assuming is a lot of people's cases today. But these are the other things we want you to do. So job alerts, it's a good idea to follow companies that you're interested in, because they might post that they're hiring. And if nothing else, you're going to learn about what's going on within their organization so that you can tailor your resume and your cover letter and be prepared for an interview. There's lots of other things you can do here, like messaging a recruiter if you figure out who the recruiter is for a job, or the hiring manager. And there's lots of different tips and tricks that we have in a LinkedIn guide that we sell and give to our clients. So it's $20 if anybody is interested in that. There's a lot of little things that you can do to kind of get notice on LinkedIn, and things that you can say to employers and recruiters, et cetera, to kind of get their attention. Now, keep in mind that when you're working on this and when you're messaging people, whether it's for networking purposes or otherwise, plenty of people are not going to respond to you. I get that. That's just part of the deal. Recruiters and hiring managers, understandably, kind of want to be hidden a little bit because they don't want to get bombarded with stuff. But what if, for example, you did reach out to them and they never replied to you, but they gave it to HR or somebody else on their team and said, check out this person's LinkedIn profile and let me know what you think. And that person checked out your profile the next day. That's somebody that I would want you to reach out to. So if you look at the bottom right-hand side here, people ask us this question a lot, and I totally get it because it's money going out the door. But premium is worth it for job seekers because you get a lot of perks with it that are worth it, including the viewed my profile, like we just said. You'll be able to more quickly build out your network because there's unlimited messaging. You can connect with more people. You can conduct more searches for people too that you want to connect with. So you usually get a free month anyway. And then someone told me, and I don't know if they still do this, but if you don't sign up after that first month, give them like a week or something and they'll send you a message or an email and they'll give you half price on the first month or something like that. So you know how people do that. LinkedIn does it too. Um, these are basically things that we've already talked about, so I'm not going to go through these, but we find that our LinkedIn guide is really good to help you be more proactive with LinkedIn. Because one of the things that we want to talk about today as part of making connections is you can't, like, I think too many people kind of assume now that, okay, I've got my keywords in there, so shouldn't like I be bombarded with recruiters and employers? Not necessarily. Like there's all these different factors, right? Is your industry hiring? Is it actively hiring in your location or not? Like, are there other things that they're looking for that you haven't yet included? The point is, don't be passive with LinkedIn. Don't just see it as, like all this stuff's going to come to you. You need to be proactive with things too and be reaching out to people. So, a couple things that we want to say here with this making connections is if you want to connect with or contact a second or third connection, always ask for an introduction from the person in between the two of you. And ask them to make that introduction to both of you, either LinkedIn or email. I don't want, oh, send me your resume, I'll pass it along. Oh, that'll never happen. And you don't know if they'll ever do it. Not being rude, but you get the gist. It's too passive. If someone makes an introduction to the two of you, that person is more on the hook. You have their contact information. So the ball's in your court and you can reach out to them, which is what we want you to do. Don't wait for them to reach out to you. You're the one that needs something. You make the reach out, but make sure you get that introduction. Okay. That's really, really important. And when you are reaching out to people or connecting with people that you don't know very well, or, outside of your best friend, always send a note about why you want to connect. Okay. And there's some examples here on this next slide. I think we all know this already, so I'm not going to spend a ton of time on it, but some things that you can say about, I appreciated your article. I liked your profile. We have XYZ in common. I'd love to stay in touch. Remember, when you go to in-person events, you need to connect with those people on LinkedIn either there or after the fact. This is something I chuckle about because I always forget to do this. I'm like jazzed about it. I've got maybe their business cards or whatever, but have the app on your phone. And there is actually now a QR code at the top of your profile inside of your app in LinkedIn so that someone can scan that and connect with you right away. Okay. Um, Wanted to just say this one quick thing. We already talked about this, so let me just keep going. But I wanted to pause here for a moment because there were a couple of questions that came in, and I'm going to have to put my glasses on. Sorry. Okay, so let me just answer a couple things here to get that going. If I am applying for a broad range of jobs, how do I make my LinkedIn profile appealing to all of them? I wanted to answer this one because this one is it's a very common question, and it can feel problematic to people. You could customize your resume or tailor it, but you can't for LinkedIn. The basic way to say this without sounding bad is you want to genericize your LinkedIn just a little bit more. It's okay to put in your header a few of the different or varying transferable skills that you have, and then just make sure in the rest of your profile that you take out any industry or job specific like lingo, and you can talk about at the end looking to leverage my skill set in these different areas. So you want to just kind of make it a little bit more general, if you will. What is appropriate etiquette on LinkedIn? How to use it to job search, seek informational interviews? We feel like as long as you send a professional sounding message to someone and you don't stalk them and like follow up with them 5 times, we think a follow up with someone once is reasonable to do so. Then it's completely fine to add new connections on LinkedIn, Vanderbilt alumni and otherwise. Just let them know why you're wanting to connect and be thoughtful about it. For the strategies too. Any strategies change when you're in a long-term company not looking for a change, family-owned business? Hopefully, so far with the branding for your purposes, what I would be talking about is making sure for those of you who are not looking for a new job that you're branding yourself effectively, that you're keeping it up to date with any new experience or skills that you've attained. And to help with kind of selling yourself, but also your organization, you've got information about your company and the results you provide to your customers. Okay, let's take a look at this next slide and then keep going. And then we'll get to our Q&A here in just a moment. Use LinkedIn notifications for professional achievements. If you've completed a class or whatever, this is something that you can push out to your network. Make sure that you're checking and responding to your messages either on a daily basis if you're in job search mode. And if not, you're at least checking this like once or twice a week. Timeliness can be really important, again, depending on your situation. Creating new connections, writing recommendations. So what we want, two things from this slide specifically, what we want is for people to have networking be a part of their weekly schedule. So even if you just say, okay, during my lunch hour on Thursdays for like 20 minutes, I'm going to do some LinkedIn stuff every week. Great, that's fantastic. Just we want it to be more of a habit for you because it's becoming more and more important for so many different reasons. And the second thing to point out here, and I just can't remember if there's a little bit more on this next slide with this. We'll deal with that in a second. Yeah, we're going to talk about groups a little bit more. So let me move to this one. We do find that it can be helpful to join groups, but it's not always because these groups are so incredibly active and you're learning a ton from them. So here's the deal. We do recommend that our clients join your alumni group as well as maybe one industry specific group. And yes, it's ideal if it's a really active group. However, we like for our clients to use it for networking purposes. Find people in there that you'd like to connect with. We've also had people tell us, or a recruiter tell us, that when they're looking for a new employee, they will go to their industry specific group first because that's a narrower pool of people. So it's worth joining these groups, but don't assume that it's because like there's going to be all this chatter and you're going to get all this information. Some groups are kind of dull and not a lot is going on. Some groups are more active than others, but we still recommend them because we've had clients make really good networking connections with people through this common, oh, I'm in this LinkedIn group or in the same industry with you. This is also a way to reach out to people who you want to conduct an informational interview with, whether it's in person, over the phone, video chat, whatever it is. Okay. We've talked about the who's viewed my profile, and actually we're going to talk a little bit more about informational interviews and sharing information with your network before we get to Q&A. But I wanted to say one thing from here, from this slide, is with the who has viewed my profile feature, it is okay in my book when you see they viewed your profile to go ahead and reach out to them and send them a message. They may not get back to you, but to me, it's like an opportunity to get in front of someone that you wouldn't have otherwise, and it doesn't seem stalkerish. This is something that people do. It's normal these days. Okay, let's take a look at sharing information. We would recommend, regardless of the situation that you're in, it's a good idea to try to post to LinkedIn like once a week. Don't post about your breakfast. It's not social media. It's not like Facebook. Keep it professional. And I have had some people start to say, yeah, it feels like it's getting a little bit more like Facebook and it's a turnoff for them. So keep all of your content work related. Okay. You can share articles or inspirational videos, things that motivate you or creative ideas. Write something that goes along with it so that you're actually like sharing some thoughts with people, and that helps brand you a little bit more. But this can help you stand out from the crowd a little bit more, build credibility. And it's a way that when you do this and you post something to your feed, your network is going to be notified. Okay. So we wanted to know with LinkedIn groups, how many people participate in LinkedIn groups at all. And I do think that this is going up a little bit. This is our third and our last poll. And like I said, what I would do with groups is find people that either, even if they're not active, that look good for you to try to connect with and ask them for an informational interview. It is good if you can try to provide some valuable information, but guess what? You could post some questions to the group about things that you're struggling with at work, about getting clients, or even, how to put your best foot forward in your search. And there may be a couple of people that respond to you, and that would be fantastic. It's just another way to kind of put a fishing line in the water, so to speak. So let's see what we say here. And I actually think this 29% is really good. This number keeps climbing. So that's great. And for those of you who are at the 71%, start with your Vandy group first. If you feel like you need help with this or anything else we're talking about, you can use the same email address that you would use to get the slides to do a free consult with us. Happy to do that. And with our workbooks and materials, as well as with our coaching, we do give a discount to Vanderbilt alums. So if you do reach out to us about anything, please just make sure you reference that and we'll get you that coupon code over there. So I wanted to make sure we're ending like a couple minutes before the 45-minute mark, but I always want to make sure that we've got enough time for Q&A and also for people to kind of not just think of their questions, but to write down what's the biggest, most important action step for you in the next week that you will take. Is it creating a banner? Is it search engine optimizing your profile? Is your LinkedIn profile already in pretty good shape and you've been procrastinating with networking with people and you need to reach out to more people to set up some of those informational interviews? That's fine too. Go ahead and write that down for us. And I would love it if people would share it either in the chat or the Q&A box, because we'd love to see some of your action steps. And when you're conducting an informational interview, because I know I said I was going to piggyback on that a little bit more, what we're looking for here is people who are either in a role that you're interested in, not that you're going to take their job, but like, they might be at a different company or whatever, that are in an industry that you're interested in or at a company that you're interested in. So there's three kind of criteria for these informational interviews. And all of those people I think are fair game to reach out to and say, hey, I'm a fellow Vanderbilt alum, or I really liked your perspective on this. Would you be willing to give me a few minutes of your time? I'm in job search mode and I'd love to pick your brain about, a couple of things to put up my best foot forward in my search. When you're reaching out to people, keep in mind that it is kind of like sales, right? You're going to get a 10 or 20% return rate of people actually getting back to you and giving time. So the more people you reach out to, the better off you're going to be, because there's going to be that chunk of people that either says no or doesn't respond to you. So just keep that in mind. I know we've got a question, I'll answer that. Just keep that in mind. Our clients are usually very pleasantly surprised by how kind people are and willing to give them their time. But there's always going to be that, group of people that you never hear back from. Don't take it personally. It's not about you. You need to keep plugging and finding people you can connect with, because there are a lot of people out there that will do that. Thanks for asking this question, Stephanie, about SEO. And I'm sorry, I should have that spelled out. It's one of those things that I use it all the time. It's search engine optimizing your profile. And what we mean by this is you want to have the right keywords in there that an employer or recruiter might be searching for someone like you. So if it were me, for example, I want to make sure, and I was looking at jobs as a career coach, but it was at, let's say, a corporation where I would be more in training and development. I would have career coaching maybe, but I would also have the keywords of professional development and training and development, those types of things, because then it's going to help brand me a little bit more, but also help with the search engines when someone is trying to find me. And you want to do the same thing with your resume as well. So it goes kind of both ways there. All right, let me go through some of the questions from before, and please feel free to ask them as we go today too. So another one that we had was, as someone early in her career, which experiences from college are relevant to a LinkedIn profile? And you're welcome, Stephanie. Thanks for asking. What kind of content should I be posting? So this would be for more recent grads, updating and better using LinkedIn for professional use. Yes, I actually tell college students that we work with or do workshops with to start their LinkedIn profile and get those networking connections going. The things that could be relevant on your profile are coursework. projects that you worked on that could be relevant too. So don't discount just because you don't have 10 years of experience that you don't have anything to put on your profile. It's okay, I would say, to put in there in your about section some of your relevant coursework and any jobs that you may have had in the past, even if it's a restaurant or something else. That is like a job in college or before college, put that in your experience section because then you've got something in there. And if it were me, I might even put like some of the courses I took or one specific course that I took at Vanderbilt as one of my in my experience section as if it was a job. And then inside of that, what some of the results were of the project or whatever it was. So you can get kind of creative with this in different ways and just build out whatever you've done in school, internships, volunteer work you can put in there, leadership positions, et cetera, classes that you took, certifications you obtained. It's a great question. Thanks for asking. Broad range of jobs stand out with recruiting via LinkedIn. I think we kind of talked about that a little bit. Etiquette, LinkedIn course, access to the group recordings. Kate, we might have to deal with that one at the end here. Strategies when okay, we talked about that one. Recommendations for revising my resume. I think that since we're focusing on LinkedIn today, obviously resume and LinkedIn are very, closely aligned and very similar. So a lot of the stuff that we talked about today will be relevant or is relevant to revising your resume. With your resume, if you've got older experience that it's been a long time, it's okay to put that older experience like at the bottom, just in one list, either with the dates or not, if you're concerned about ageism. But I wouldn't suggest having like a 10-page resume with all of your experience or even like 4 pages. Try to keep it to either 2 or 3 pages and you can list that older experience just at the end as a longer list. And we've got another question. Son is a engineering student. What point do you advise he starts networking for a job post-graduation? What does he need to be doing now? Great question. I would have him at least create a profile. And what I mean by that is like get signed up for an account, try to get a headshot and start to put some content in there so that he at least has something going and can start to make those connections with professors, with people in his classes, if they have LinkedIn profiles. Again, not all of them will, but even if he attends events or alumni events like this, or connects with other people, he can start building out his network. So the basics of a profile, it doesn't have to be perfect, at least creating an account and having him connect with his family members and his professors as a starting point. That would be one idea, I would say. These are really good questions. Thanks everybody for asking. Kate, are there any more that you had from before? And oh yeah, good. Thank you, Kate. Perfect. Oh, this is a really good one. So thank you for putting this in the chat box because this is something I usually like to reference. Can I use AI to update my profile? How frequently should I follow up with connections? So number one, AI and ChatGPT, those can be helpful to help you update, improve your profile and your resume. We do not recommend using them to create either of those because employers and recruiters are telling us they can already tell if people do that and they don't like it. So write it out yourself first and use AI to help massage it a little bit, give you some other ideas, help you maybe with keywords, different words that you can use. Totally fine there. Make it still sound like it's your voice though and unique to you, because you can tell when people write a certain way and then they talk a different way, something's a little off there. The second question that Kate posted was, how frequently should I follow up with networking connections? This is a good one. And I would say it depends on what your purpose is for the networking. If you're in really active, heavy duty job seeking mode, I would stay in touch with them once a month or less if they're making introductions to people for you, or they tell you, let's stay in touch, or they seem really engaged in helping you with your search. I would, at the end of that conversation with them, say, do you mind if I touch base with you in a couple weeks? Okay, great. Whatever. For outside of that, once a month kind of would make sense. If you're not in active job search mode, for you, it may be more like once a quarter that you just put down, hey, let me post something, check in with these different people. Okay. We like for people, and there's actually, if you all can go before we leave here for today, just to mention this while we're at it, there is a survey in the chat box, and we would love to hear from people about this webinar today, suggestions you have for other topics. We always want to continue to improve and know what we're doing well too. So please take a moment to fill that out if you would. And when the thing I was going to say about networking connections and staying in touch with them too is it's a really good idea to keep track of your networking connections like in an Excel spreadsheet so that you know who you've talked to, when you talked to them, what was said, and what's the good follow-up time frame. Okay, that'll help you stay organized, and you'll remember the personal thing that you all talked about before. You can bring it up when you talk next, and you look like you've got your act together in a good way. All right, so that's the survey there. Please do fill that out because we're always wanting to build out our content for alumni as well, to meet your needs and what you all need help with. Kate, is there anything that you want to say or any announcements you want to make before we go? Because we have a program coming up too, and I didn't put that in the slides today. I figured we could talk about that verbally.
Yes. So there is a LinkedIn boot camp coming up on February 22nd and 29th that Hallie is leading and hosting. You can find more information and the link to register on our website, as well as I can drop it in the chat before we leave. So please look at that as well as other webinars that Hallie is hosting this semester, this spring, how to focus on mental health at work, 5 coaching skills every leader should master, as well as another job search boot camp in May. So I want to make sure that you all have that information and those topics and the dates are included in that website link that I noted along with the survey. So if anyone has any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out, but happy to help with directing you to Hallie's resources in any way that I can. Like was mentioned earlier, you will receive a follow-up email after today with today's recording, as well as information about upcoming opportunities for boot camps, webinars, Hallie's contact information. So be on the lookout for that as well.
Yeah, thanks for that, Kate. I really appreciate it because I think that's what that question was about the recording. So I think you answered it. And the boot camp coming up is a lower cost, more affordable way, just by the way, to get in-depth help with your LinkedIn. We give you our guide, we give you example templates, you know, like of profiles and stuff. So if you're in the camp of I really need to beef this up, but I need to, you know, save some money too, I would recommend that because it can help so much. And usually the groups in a good way are like small enough. Everybody gets to answer or ask all of their questions, and we get to all of them too, which is really fantastic. All righty. I don't think I see any other questions unless, oh yeah, so there's the registration. Thanks, Kate, for that. That's awesome. And as a
Yes.
reminder too, if people have questions later on, feel free to email me or Kate, happy to answer.
Yes, thank you so much, Hallie. And I saw the note. Let me just try and drop the survey in one more time. But it will also be included in the post webinar email that everyone will receive. Like Hallie mentioned, just to echo, we always appreciate feedback and any ideas, or if there are any topics that are top of mind for you all, would appreciate the feedback. So
Yeah.
hopefully that link works. If not, promise we'll get it. Okay, perfect. Thanks, Stephanie.
Yeah, I just
Um,
tested it too, and it does. It's
Perfect.
good.
Sorry about the first go round, but happy it works. And again, we just appreciate any thoughts, comments, and feedback. But Hallie, thank you so much for today. It was wonderful as always. And everyone that's attending, again, you'll receive follow-up information here in the next few days. And please don't hesitate to reach out to myself, or of course, we'll include Hallie's contact information if you have any questions. But thank you so much again, and we look forward to seeing everyone in a future webinar.
Sounds good. Have a great day, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.